Welcome all for our Thursday program. We will start with the Kirtan. Hare Krishna. So we will begin our session today with our prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 54, Verse 5. Prahasya Bhagavan Aha Masma Bhairvamalochane Vinankshyati Adhunaivaitat Tavakaishatravam Balam. Prahasya Bhagavan Aha Masma Bhairvamalochane Vinankshyati Adhunaivaitat Tavakaishatravam Balam. Prahasya Bhagavanaha Masma Bhairvamalochane Vinankshyati Adhunaivaitat Tavakaishatravam Balam. Translation. In response, the Lord laughed and assured her, "Do not be afraid, beautiful-eyed one. This enemy force is about to be destroyed by your soldiers." Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. To express his great affection for Rukmini, Lord Krishna gallantly referred to his own Yadava army as your men, indicating that the Lord's entire dynasty was now the property of his beloved queen. The Supreme Lord Krishna desires to share his blissful opulences with all living beings, and thus he sincerely invites them to come back home, back to Godhead. The Krishna consciousness movement, introduced throughout the world by Srila Prabhupada on the order of his spiritual master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, who himself preached all over the India on the order of his exalted father Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is broadcasting the loving message of Lord Krishna. Remember him, serve him, return to him, and share in the infinite bounty of the kingdom of God. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanditamscha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome all for the second session of the series Shri Rukmini Devi, the Supreme Queen of Dwaraka. We will begin our session today by a quick recap of what we have learned last week. So last week we spoke about briefly about the tattva of Srimati Rukmini Devi, how she was the prince of Vidarbha on the earthly pastimes, but her tattva was that she is the internal potency of the Supreme Lord himself. We spoke about Shakti and Shaktiman, and we spoke about how Rukmini Devi, in her desperation, because Rukmini was trying to get her married to Shishupal, in that desperate situation she wrote a letter to Lord Krishna and she sent it through a trusted Brahmana. And Lord Krishna, the king of Dwaraka, he receives the letter and he reads the letter. And back in Kundina, Rukmini is eagerly awaiting the return of the Brahmana with whom she had sent the letter. So this is briefly about what we have spoken about last week. So today we shall continue from that point. So basically the pastimes of Krishna are not material, they are transcendental. What is transcendental? Transcendental means something that is not material. Bhagavad Gita says, Janma karma cha me divyam yo me yo vekti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam so eti so archana. So Janma karma cha me divyam, so the Supreme Lord's birth and activities, Janma and Karma, divyam, they are divine, they are transcendental. So they are not to be taken as ordinary or material. And these pastimes of Krishna, they cannot be accessed with ordinary material senses. So there is this beautiful verse in Bhagavatam which says, Atah Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyai sevon mukhehi jihvadau swayam eva spurati yada. So the name and form and the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, the Sri Krishna Namadi, na bhavet grahyam indriyai, the senses cannot perceive them. But when we render favorable service to the Supreme Lord, starting with the tongue in the form of chanting and glorifying the Supreme Lord, Swayam eva spurati yada, Krishna himself reveals the true nature himself. So until the Supreme Lord reveals, one cannot truly understand the secret of his birth and pastimes. So I humbly express my own deficiencies in actually speaking about the pastimes of the Lord. I personally have no qualification, but with the blessings of my superiors, my Guru Maharaj and Guru Parampara, I will try to speak something for the pleasure of all devotees and for my own purification. With your blessings, I would begin today's class. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada in the introduction to Chaitanya Charitamrita writes that it is very difficult to understand and approach Krishna directly, but when we approach him through the medium of Lord Chaitanya, it becomes very easy. So because Lord Chaitanya is Mahavadanyaya, he is supremely merciful and he has descended specifically for the purpose of giving love of God. So how much Lord Chaitanya is none other than Krishna himself, who has descended in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So when actually Krishna has read the letter of Rukmini Devi, what we see in Bhagavatam is how he is acted upon it. But what he truly felt for it, we see it in the beautiful pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Leela. So Lord Chaitanya, in his pastimes in Srivasangan with all the devotees, one day they were enacting the Rukmini Dwarkadish Leela. After the Sankirtan pastimes are over, they were enacting the Rukmini Dwarkadish Leela. So all the great personality like Srila Haridas Thakur, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur, everybody was present there, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was playing the role of Rukmini Devi. So he was enacting the role of Rukmini Devi. So when he walked in, everybody was just watching him, and he started speaking, and slowly he actually entered into the mood of Rukmini Devi. So, and he started shedding incessant tears. He started reciting the verses that Rukmini Devi wrote in the letter to Krishna, which we have read about last week. And as he was reciting those verses, incessant tears were just rolling down his eyes. And with his tears as the ink, and with his fingers as the pen, and with the earth, the ground as the paper, he started writing all these verses on the ground. And looking at this intense emotion and feelings, all the devotees assembled there, like Srivas Thakur, Srila Haridas, they all started shedding tears. So this was how much this letter meant to the Supreme Lord, which is expressed in this Chaitanya Leela. So after Krishna received this letter, what did he do? He told the Brahmana, he held the hand of the Brahmana and he said, I am very grateful to you for bringing this letter to me, and tonight itself we shall start off to Vidarbha. And then Krishna calls upon Daruka. Daruka is his personal charioteer, and he instructs him, please get the chariot ready. And Krishna's chariot is yoked with 4 horses, and all these 4 horses have names. They are Shaibya, Meghapushpa, Sugriva and Balavaha. So Shaibya is it has a color of the wings of a parrot, so it's parrot green in color. That's the color of Krishna's horse. And the next is Sugriva. Sugriva, the horse, is slightly yellowish golden color. And the next one, Meghapushpa. Meghapushpa is of the color of the cloud. And the next horse is Balavaha, and Balavaha is whitish in color. So Daruka, with all these 4 horses, he was all set, all ready, and all these 4 horses were they're known for their prowess. They're extremely powerful horses. And Krishna mounts the chariot, takes the Brahmana with him, and he drives towards Vidarbha. And the very next morning, overnight, they reach Vidarbha. They drive overnight, and very next early hours of morning, they reach Vidarbha, especially Kundinapur. And what's happening in Kundina, capital city of Vidarbha? Bhishmaka, the father of Rukmini, he was making all grand arrangements. It was the wedding of his only daughter, who was so dear to him, the most beautiful. And he was making all arrangements. The whole city, the roads were sprinkled with water. There were flags, festoons, and there were all auspicious decorations. And all the citizens were adorned with beautiful jewelry and dressing. And all the Brahmanas were reciting auspicious mantras. So there was all these very grand arrangements happening. So Bhishmaka, he knew the heart of his daughter. He knew that Rukmini loved Krishna and she gave her heart to Krishna. But still, he was swayed away by his affection for his son Rukmi. And that is why he could not go against the wish of his son. So we see that if we understand the parallels between the mood of Bhishmaka and Swayambhuva Manu. You remember Swayambhuva Manu in our previous series. He actually raised his daughter in a very God-conscious environment, and he married his daughter to none other than Kardama Muni, who is a renunciate. Swayambhuva Manu is the emperor of the whole world, and his daughter is the delicate princess, and she was risen in opulences. But still, he gave the hand of his daughter to a renunciate, who is Kardama Muni, but who is a great devotee of the Lord. So he knew what was of value, and he lived by that value. And he went all out to give his daughter because he knew what is of true value in life. On the other hand, we see here Bhishmaka, he is also a devotee of the Lord. But still, though he valued devotion to Krishna as the Supreme internally, but externally he could not act on those values because he was sold out to the affection he had for his son. So when the internal values and our external activities are harmonized, and we have the integrity to act on those values with determination, that is when the standard of civilization can be risen to a very high level. So this was not, unfortunately, something that did not happen with Bhishmaka yet, but internally he was a devotee of the Lord. So yes, so all these grand arrangements were happening, and from Bhishmaka he received the guests. He received Damagosha. Damagosha is the son of Shishupal. Damagosha is the father of Shishupal. He received Damagosha, and with all the grand arrangements and with great hospitality, he led Damagosha and his whole entourage into their quarters, which were specially made for them. And on the other hand, Shishupal also arrived with his whole army. Along with Shishupal were also Shishupal's supporters like Jarasandha, Vidurata, Shalva, Dantavakra, and even Paundraka. They all came to the wedding along with their armies. Now, why did all of them come with their armies? They came with their armies because they had this suspicion that Krishna might come to take Rukmini away. And if he comes, this is the right opportunity for us to take over and defeat Krishna, which they were longing for so long. And it was not happening, and they were desperate. So that's the reason they came with all their armies, and they were internally ready for a fight. So this was what was happening at their end. And so Vidarbha and Kundinapur, now this whole city was adorned and decorated and was totally staged so beautifully. It was looking as if it was staged so beautifully to be ready for the pastimes of Krishna. So so that Krishna comes and performs his beautiful pastimes. The whole city was decorated to receive the lotus feet of the Lord. And on the other hand, Balaramji, knowing that all these armies have also come to Vidarbha, he receives a message. He thinks that, oh, Krishna has gone alone, so he might be needing my support. Let me go. And Balaram immediately he brings his whole the army of the Vrishni dynasty of the Yadukula, and he also comes to Vidarbha along the whole army. So now Krishna and Balaram have entered the city of Kundina, and let's see what's happening in the palace, in the chambers of Rukmini Devi. So basically now Krishna and Balaram have entered the city of Kundina, and Krishna has come to reciprocate with the love of Rukmini. So when Krishna reciprocates, how does he do so? So Krishna has a particular style of reciprocation. So I've just made a small acronym. There were the various A's. There are 7 A's when Krishna reciprocates. So what are the 7 A's when Krishna reciprocates? When Krishna reciprocates, there is anxiety. When Krishna reciprocates, there is assurance, there is anticipation. When Krishna reciprocates, all desires are fulfilled. Then there is annihilation of inauspicious elements. There is awakening of transcendental knowledge, and there is all auspiciousness. So we will go through the entire sessions in this framework. It comes out nicely. So anxiety. So back in Rukmini's palace, what's happening? So Rukmini Devi has sent the Brahmana, and Bhishmaka has began all the arrangements for the wedding, and there were Brahmanas coming and reciting all the Veda mantras for the welfare of the bride. They were reciting the Rig Veda, Yajur, Sama Veda, and they were also reciting the mantras from Atharva Veda. The mantras of Atharva Veda are meant to drive off any negative celestial influence on the bride. So they were learned Brahmanas who were reciting the Atharva Veda mantras. And Rukmini Devi was given the finest of garments. They were just off the loom, and she was given the most finest of jewelry. And she had undergone her auspicious bath, and it was just before the sunrise that she was adorned in all the most beautiful bridal wear, bridal attire, and the most delicate jewelry. in the heart of her heart, she was in complete anxiety. She was thinking, what happened? Why didn't the Brahmana still return? She's thinking that is it that maybe Krishna, who is all perfect, he did not consider me qualified enough to be his bride. Maybe I'm not fit for him. I'm not qualified to be his beloved queen. Maybe he didn't accept my proposal, and maybe that is why the Brahmana did not return to come and see me, being afraid that he didn't want to show his face to me. Maybe Lord Krishna might have started, and maybe Brahma has come and stopped him, or maybe Lord Shiva has stopped him, or maybe maybe I did not serve Lord Shiva and the goddess Parvati properly. Maybe I have committed some offenses in serving them, and that is why I am crying like this today. And all sorts of things keep on going in her mind, in which she was complete anxiety. Imagine, she has expressed her whole life's surrender to the Lord and to Krishna, and she was eagerly waiting, and now she's not sure whether her proposal is accepted or not yet accepted, and what is she supposed to do. And it was sunrise, and the wedding hours are fast approaching. She was in complete anxiety. And as she was thinking like this, she just half closed her eyes, and tears filled her eyes, and tears rolled down her cheeks. But internally she had the consolement that it was not yet time for the Lord to come. It was still the early hours of morning. But she was so much in this anxiety. So this is generally, the anxiety is a precursor for all every time Krishna reciprocates, the prelude is these anxious movements. So we see in anxiety, so anxiety is an intrinsic feature of every Krishna Leela. So if you're thinking that I'm going to chant, I'm going to attain perfection and then be done with all the anxieties and no more anxieties at all, you're mistaken, because Krishna's pastimes are super dynamic. They're full of, the Brajvasis, the amount of anxiety they undergo because of Krishna, it's unimaginable. Yashoda Maya, the amount of anxiety that she goes through when Krishna killed Putana. She was 12 miles high and she was such a big demoness, and little Krishna was just few months baby, and when she saw Krishna crawling on Putana's dead body, the kind of anxiety that she felt for him, she was almost about to faint. And when Krishna killed Trinavarta, the wind demon, he almost firstly, when the wind demon Trinavarta, when he entered Vrindavan, there was a huge dust storm. The Brajvasis, they couldn't see anything. Their whole eyes were covered by particles of dust. They literally couldn't see each other. And Mother Yashoda, and she couldn't see Krishna anywhere around her. And in that anxiety, she literally fainted. Just like a cow losing her calf, she fainted. And then Krishna goes up in the sky, and he strangles Trinavarta to death, and Trinavarta collapses, and he is again few miles. And all the gopis and Yashodamai, when they see Krishna, coming down from such huge heights, their heart, we can't even imagine what they have gone through. All the leelas of Krishna, be it the killing of any demon, Agasura, Bakasura, and Keshi, Arishtasur, Vyomasur, all these demons, Krishna, he kills one demon per day. Every day before lunch, he used to kill a demon. And the kind of anxiety all the Brajvasis used to go through while Krishna was killing these demons. Why this anxiety was created? It's because this anxiety increases their love for Krishna. Krishna creates this anxiety in his devotees' life to increase their love for him. So that's what Prabhupada says. He's, to increase the love and draw more love and affection from his devotees. Krishna, and in fact, Yogamaya creates this anxiety in the life of the devotees. It increases that longing, that separation. So, yeah. Yes. So after all this anxiety, then what comes? Then Krishna gives an assurance, the second A. So Rukmini Devi, when she was looking out, in that anxiety, she was looking out of the window, she saw that the Brahmana was walking into the palace, into the inner chambers of the palace. And as soon as she saw, she was so relieved. Krishna actually sends the Brahmana, when he reaches the outskirts of the city, he tells the Brahmana, my dear Brahmana, please go to Rukmini and inform her that I have come. And so the Brahmana comes to Rukmini. So Krishna is very sensitive to the feelings of his devotees, that he always sends an assurance to give relief to that anxiety. So Rukmini was waiting with that full anxiety, and when she sees that Brahmana, and when she sees that jubilant smile in the Brahmana's face, she could understand that this is a positive reply. And she is very intelligent at interpreting the features of others. So when she sees the Brahmana coming smiling, she understands, yes, it's a positive signal for me. So the Brahmana comes and he tells, my dear princess, Krishna has arrived into the city and he has told that he will soon come to take you to marry you. And Rukmini, with all the smile and happiness, she bows down to the Brahmana with a heart full of gratitude. And the Brahmana leaves. So this assurance is what Krishna gives in our lives, in the lives of devotees. Let's see how Krishna gives this assurance in the lives of different devotees when they're going through this moments of anxiety. So as Janmashtami is coming near, we can meditate on this beautiful pastime that Devaki, when the Supreme Lord Krishna has entered her womb, she has become so effulgent and so jubilant, and she was radiating such brilliant light, and the whole prison house got lit up because of the light that was emanating, the effulgence that was emanating from her body because of the presence of Krishna in her womb. So seeing this effulgence and the jubilance in the face of Devaki, Kamsa becomes very suspicious. And he thinks, yeah, this person for sure is the same Vishnu whom the celestial voice has spoken about will come and kill me. So I have to be very careful. In fact, he even plans, should I even kill Devaki right now? But then he backs off thinking, no, I will be doomed for the rest of my life if I kill a woman. So I will not do it. So Kamsa he becomes very restless and he becomes very anxious. So Devaki, seeing that Kamsa is, has already understood that the Supreme Lord has come to my womb, she becomes very anxious, thinking that, Kamsa, he's already killed 6 sons of mine so ruthlessly, and if he comes to know, he's already come to know that now that the baby is in my womb and there's effulgence all over, and he's going to surely come and kill this son too, and she feels a lot of anxiety and pain in her heart. So at that time, all the demigods from Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, along with Devarshis, Narada and Devala, and the demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna and Vayu, all of them descend and offer beautiful prayers. These are called the Garbhastuti prayers. And these are very beautiful prayers. They come in the 10th canto, 2nd chapter. It is very nice to recite these prayers before Janmashtami, very auspicious. If we have time, you can go through. And they recite all these prayers, and then they come to Devaki and they give her an assurance. They tell, dear Devaki, please do not be afraid. Kamsa cannot do anything to your son, Krishna. In fact, he will himself come and demolish Kamsa at the right time. So do not be afraid. So in this way, Krishna sends that assurance to Devaki through his devotees. So oftentimes we see this also Srila Prabhupada, when he was in at Radha Damodar, trying to fulfill the instructions of his spiritual master, he felt himself very inadequate. He felt himself very unqualified to accomplish the mission. So he used to shed incessant tears and chant throughout the day and cry in front of the deities. My spiritual master has given me an impossible mission. How will I ever be able to accomplish this? So Prabhupada was constantly in this mood of feeling himself so unqualified. This is a common feature of every pure devotee. They feel themselves very unqualified to serve the Lord. So once, like Srila Prabhupada shares this pastime with one of his disciples after the whole ISKCON movement has begun. So he told that disciple that one day when I was at the rooms of Radha Damodar temple, and I was just, I went to sleep, and Srila Rupa Goswami himself has appeared, and he gave me an assurance saying that you will be doing great work that will help the whole world. He gives that prophecy of the whole ISKCON movement. So Srila Rupa Goswami actually gave that assurance to Srila Prabhupada when he was anxious whether he could perform the task or not. So in this way, the Lord gives assurance at the right time to all his devotees when they're going through this phase of anxiety. This is one of the sweetness of his reciprocation. So then so Krishna and Balaram, they have entered the city of Kundina, and Bhishmaka, having heard of the arrival of Lord Balaram and Krishna, he personally goes, receives them, offers them madhuparka, brand new clothes, ornaments, and they show beautiful accommodation for them, and receives them with full hospitality, Krishna, Balaram and their whole entourage. He receives them because he thinks they have come for the wedding of his daughter. So, but Krishna came for a different purpose, which we will see later. So this is Krishna's style. He does not have to do things chori chupke. He comes directly, and Bhishmaka himself has received Krishna. So, and when Krishna arrived, what was happening to all these people of the citizens of Kundinapur? The citizens of Kundina, they were just gazing at Krishna incessantly. They were like, they say Netranjali, they've made their eyes like cupped palms, and they were just drinking the nectar of Krishna's beauty. And they were praying to the Lord, may, if the Lord is pleased with my pious works till now, let them all be offered to our princess Rukmini, and may Rukmini be married to Krishna. Krishna is the only suitable bride for Rukmini, and Rukmini is the only suitable bride. Krishna is the only suitable groom for Rukmini, and Rukmini is the only suitable bride for Krishna. They are just made for each other, and let them get married. And this is the desire of every citizen of Kundina. And they were offering their prayers. They were just so deeply desiring, and they were offering all the results of their pious deeds to Rukmini Devis for this Rukmini Kalyan with Krishna to happen. So this is the nature of devotees. They always like to see the Supreme Lord and his consort get married, be united. Even if when be it the Sitaram Kalyan, it's such a celebration to the heart when we witness the Sitaram Kalyan. Or even at Tirupati, there is Kalyanam every day of Lord Balaji and Padmavati. It is such a festival to the eyes to see this marriage ceremony. So whenever the Lord and his consort unite, it brings such a joy and celebration to the whole world. So that's how the citizens of Kundina were desiring that may Krishna marry Rukmini. So what's the next aspect of Krishna's reciprocation? It is anticipation. So Krishna has come to Kundinapur, and he was received well by Bhishmaka. And Rukmini, now she was totally assured by the Brahmana. So Brahmana told her that Krishna has come, and he will soon come to take you and marry you. So Rukmini, now she is totally well dressed and for the occasion, and there is a ritual that is to be carried out by the brides of the royal court that just before the wedding, they have to visit the temple of goddess Bhavani or Ambika to worship her and seek her blessings before the event. So she's all dressed and adorned. Rukmini slowly walks towards the palanquin to be carried to the temple. And as she's walking, in the heart of her heart, she takes complete shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. She's meditating only exclusively on the lotus feet of Supreme Lord Krishna. So that was her single pointed meditation. This is a beautiful verse. Chittam naiva nivartate kshanamapi Sri Krishna padambujan Nindantu priya bandhava gurujana grinantu munchantu va Durvadam parighoshayantu manuja vamshe kalankostu va Tvatrik prema dharanuraga mattayamanam tume. My mind cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna even for a moment. King Kulashevara Alvar is praying. Nindantu priya bandhava gurujana, whatever my relatives may think of me, or even if my own people, my own family members think that I am a blemish to their family, I don't care. Why? Because I have experienced the overflooding nectar of the love of Krishna. And so I have fixed my mind completely upon the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's how Rukmini, in her heart of the heart, her mind was completely fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. And with that feeling, she didn't care about what was happening around at the end of her family or what everybody thought of. And she was just waiting for Krishna. And she walked through, and as she was walking, all the bodyguards were coming with her. I mean, the security guards, the royal courtesans, and she was taken to the palanquin with all the instruments of drums, the panavas, the dundubis, all these are played, and it was a very festive environment that was created because of all these auspicious sounds. And Rukmini, along with her many girlfriends and mothers and relatives, she heads to the Ambika temple, and she goes there, she gets off the palanquin and walks barefoot into the temple with that anticipation. So at this stage, there is a great anticipation or longing in the heart of Rukmini. When is Krishna going to come? When is Krishna going to come? She's assured, no doubt, but she has that anticipation. So this anticipation is a very beautiful feeling that intensifies the joy of actually seeing the Lord face to face. So we see this in this in this pastime of Akrura. So Akrura, when he was approaching Vrindavan, there are beautiful prayers that Akrura offers even before meeting the Lord face to face. When he is approaching the land of Vrindavan, he sees the lotus footprints of Krishna on the dust of Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, basically there's a policy. Whenever Krishna walks and leaves his footprints behind, nobody steps on them. Not just the gopis, gopas, none of the animals too. So the lotus footprints are just like that. So when Akrura sees those lotus footprints of Krishna, he gets off his chariot, and with such love and devotion, he offers obeisances to them, and he bathes himself in the dust, and he offers such amazing choicest prayers before approaching the Lord of Vrindavan. So this is the mood when it is nourished in our heart, it makes the union much more beautiful, much more joyous, much more ecstatic. So we also see this in the Chaitanya Leela. When Mahaprabhu is coming to Jagannath Puri, he had such longing to see the Lord, the deities of Lord Jagannath, that all the way he was just meditating on the form of Lord Jagannath from when he was coming from Nadia to Jagannath Puri. And when he actually arrived at Puri, he saw the temple and he saw the Sudarshan, and he fainted in that ecstasy. That was, if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's the PhD of devotion. So, and when Mahaprabhu used to come for the darshan of the Lord Jagannath, he was just always used to wait at the Dvajastambha and anticipate the darshan of Jagannath with such longing. And it is said that if you can see in this picture how Lord Chaitanya has put his lotus hand on the Dvajastambha, and the intensity of his devotion and longing was so much that the heat that came from the body has actually melted the Dvajastambha at that place. You can still observe if you go to the temple of Jagannath Puri and go to the Dvajastambha, the lotus fingerprints of Mahaprabhu are still there, because the Dvajastambha melted because of the ecstatic love of Mahaprabhu. So, even all of us, like we all have the experience of going to Tirupati, and when before taking the darshan of Lord Balaji, we stand in such long queues for a long time, and that anticipation of the darshan of Lord Balaji, it intensifies the experience of ecstasy when we actually have the darshan of the Lord. In the queue, throughout the standing in the queue, we chant Govinda, 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 and we like chanting the names of Lord Govinda. We stand in the queue and we keep going, and finally when you have the darshan of the Lord, it's awesome. So is it when we stand for the Shringararati darshan at temple, in anticipation of the curtains are not yet open, the curtains are still closed, it's not yet 7:30, but if you go to the temple 5 minutes before 7:30 and wait there for the darshan of the Lord, and then at 7:30 the curtains open and you take the darshan, it's much more fulfilling than having the darshan of the Lord at 7:35 when the darshan is already open. So this anticipation is something that intensifies the happiness that comes with the actual darshan of the Lord. So this anticipation is actually one of the reciprocations of Krishna. So what happens next? So the fourth element is all desires are fulfilled. So after Rukmini goes to the temple of Girija or Ambika Devi, she takes darshan of the Supreme Goddess. Then she offers prayers and respects, and then she offers her all the holy water, incense, lamps, then fresh clothes. She offers her ornaments and betel nuts, and many auspicious items are offered to her. And the wives of Brahmanas, they perform certain rituals, and they offer savories and cakes to Supreme Goddess Bhavani as a bhoga, and they take the Mahaprasad and they give Rukmini. And all the wives of Brahmanas are very desirous that the deepest desire of Rukmini be fulfilled, that the deepest desire of she getting married to Krishna. So after finishing the ritual, Rukmini Devi then prays to Goddess Ambika that, may please, O mother, kindly give me your blessings that I may get Krishna as my husband. Offering these prayers, she walks out and she breaks the vow of her silence. She holds on to the maid servant, her girlfriend, her Sakhi, and she walks out of the temple. And as she walks out of the temple, she clasps the hand of her Sakhi very firmly. She comes out. And she clasps her hand because she was in anxiety. And so when she came out, she was just walking out like, a swan. We say hamsa, walking like a hamsa. She was walking like a swan. So as she was walking down, beautifully adorned with all the best jewelry, and she was beauty personified, and she was extraordinarily and extremely beautiful. And as she walked out, all the kings were all assembled outside this temple on their chariots and on their horses and elephants. They were just waiting to see Rukmini. So when Rukmini comes out, she very shyly walks in with the delicate steps, and she smiles slightly because she was just anticipating Krishna's presence any moment. And with her the nails of her left hand fingers, she just brushes aside her strands of hairs that is blocking her eyes, and from the corner of her eyes she glances around to look for Krishna. At this time she was trying to look for Krishna, but looking at this amazing beauty, the kings who were seated on the chariots, they fainted. They fell off their chariots, they fell off their horses, they fell off their elephants. But Rukmini was just looking for Krishna. She did not want her glance of her eyes to meet with any other person. And finally she found, and her eyes met the eyes of Krishna, the first time she ever saw Krishna. So when that happened, she moved. So actually in the purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the beauty which these other kings have seen is not the beauty of Rukmini Devi in her internal potency. In fact, they fainted by the attraction of the illusory potency. What they could see is the illusory potency. Basically, the one who has even a grain of contamination in the heart cannot admire the beauty of internal potency of the Supreme Lord. So what they were all seeing, and they were all fainted, is seeing the beauty of the illusory potency of the Lord. Just like how it was Maya Sita in the Lanka of Ravana. So whom they have seen and fainted, who they were attracted to, is the illusory potency of the Lord. It is not the internal potency. So Rukmini Devi, after her eyes met with the eyes of Krishna, she just moves slightly in front. She just walks ahead. And there Krishna comes on his chariot, royally. He just comes on his chariot. He lifts Rukmini and he mounts her on his chariot, and he just goes away. And all the kings, they were aghast. Alas, alas, our queen has gone. And in fact, there was Shishupala, totally devastated. And the only person who was happy there was Bhishmaka. Bhishmaka, the father of Rukmini, he was internally rejoiced that, yes, I'm happy with this. But the person who was so thoroughly devastated here was Shishupal, who was totally dressed as the bride, as the groom. He came with his whole army, with all his friends, with all his supporters to marry Rukmini. And when he was seeing this, he felt as if his wife was being taken away. He was not yet married, though. So who is this Shishupal actually? The Shishupal is the same Ravana in Treta Yuga. In fact, Jaya and Vijaya, who are the gatekeepers of Lord Narayan, they have three births to take as the opponents of Krishna. So they appear as Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha in the Satya Yuga. Then in Treta they appear as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and in Dwapar they appeared as Shishupal and Dantavakra. So this Shishupal is none other than the same Ravana of Treta Yuga. And in the Ramalila, he came as Ravana, and when nobody was seeing, he kidnapped Sita against her wish and he took her away to Lanka. Krishna, when he performs his pastime and he has to take his bride, he does not do things like that. He does his original style. He came, and in front of everybody he picked up his queen, his would-be queen, and he walked away. So that's the potency of Krishna. Right in front of Shishupal he did that. So it is said that he has taken Rukmini just like a lion takes his piece of meal away from the jackals, and he takes Rukmini and he goes away. And as the chariot of Krishna has started off in the direction of Dwarka, all these kings along with all their armies, they all chased behind Krishna. But leading Krishna was Balaram. Balaram was coming behind Krishna to support him. And as Krishna's chariot went ahead and ahead, the whole army of all these, Jarasandha, Dantavakra, and Shishupal and Shalva, all of them, they all mounted their chariots and they started off to attack Krishna, the Vrishni army. And they all started showering arrows. It was like a rain of torrents of arrows that have been shot upon the Vrishni army. And it was like, torrents of rain on a mountain. So when Rukmini saw this ghastly scene, she had a mixed expression of shyness and fear. She had fear-stricken eyes, but then Krishna was right beside her. So with the feeling of, very shyly and fear-stricken eyes, she looked at Krishna, and Krishna reciprocated to her. So this is the very first word that Krishna spoke to Rukmini. What Krishna told Rukmini? So when Rukmini looks at Krishna with that fear-stricken eyes, Krishna tells, "Oh beautiful eyed one, do not be afraid, because your army will take care of this, all these men." This is the very first verse we started with, if you remember, saying that, not worry, your army will take care of these opponents. So with this one word, Krishna has actually, I think, conquered the heart of Rukmini. He in fact fulfilled all her desires, because all this while she expressed her love for Krishna, she heard about Krishna, she was longing for Krishna, and Krishna reciprocated to her. But then there's a very first word Krishna spoke to her, and in that one word, few words, Krishna actually conquered her heart completely, saying that your army, that means he's saying that whatever is mine is yours. So he just expressed his love for her in those few words. And in the purport, the disciples of Prabhupada write that this is how Krishna is so eager to share all his opulences with all the living entities, and that's why he's inviting us so much to come back to him and be a part of his very personal domain. There's this beautiful verse, Nathe na purushottame drijagatam ekadhipe chetasa sevye svasya padhasya dhatari pare narayane tishtati yam kinchit purusharthamam katipaye grameshamalpathadam sevyayai mrugaya mahenaram aho mudhavarakavayam. The Supreme Lord, who is Ekadhipe Chetasa, he is the Lord of all the three worlds. Purushottame Trijagatam, he is the Supreme Lord of three worlds. He is wanting to share his personal domain with all of us. How? By just, by mere devotion we can attain to that. But how foolish are the living entities for that, for some meager, gramesham alparthatam, for the very meager attainments, they are busy serving the foolish lowly lords of this simple villages. In other words, we're working so hard to please our material bosses to get some meager money and wealth or something in return. But whom we are missing out in the whole process? We are missing out the Supreme Lord, who is willing to give us his own domain, his whole Golok Vrindavan, his whole Vaikunta. He wants to share it with us unconditionally. But here we are stuck trying to get some, 200 square yards on earth. So this is our sorry condition. So that is why Kuleshekar Alvar says, Aho mudha varakavayam. We are such mudhas, fools. So this is what Krishna wants to give us, and anyone who approaches Krishna, all their desires are fulfilled forever and forevermore. In Bhagavad Gita, especially when when Arjuna tells Krishna that I want to see your universal form. So Krishna shows before showing the universal form, he says, "Oh Arjuna, lo and behold, this is my universal form, and whatever you wish to see, behold at once." At once you can see whatever you want to see in this body of mine. So in this universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future also. See, not only your desires right now are fulfilled, in future whatever you may desire to see also I am fulfilling it right now. I mean, can you ever imagine a person, a master, a lord like this who's saying that whatever you may desire in future also I am fulfilling it right now. That is Krishna, the Supreme Master, the Supreme Reciprocator. Nobody can reciprocate the way Krishna can, so personally with every living entity and to the fullest extent. So, and this we see also the same aspect in Vraja Leela, where Krishna, where all the Brajvasis are so mystified, they were so attracted by the beauty of Krishna, and they were so much in love with him that they want to have, whenever they see Krishna's pastimes as a baby with in the house of Yashoda and Nanda, they love him more than his own son. They love him more than their own sons, and they had this paternal affection for Krishna. So when Krishna, after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when Lord Brahma steals away the calves and the cows and the gopas and puts them in Satyaloka, so what Krishna does is he himself expands into all these Gopakumaras and he enters into the houses of all these Brajvasis, and for 1 year he stayed with them like that, and in that 1 year all these all the Brajvasis had such great incremental increase in their love for their own sons, because it was Krishna himself, but they didn't know, they were thinking it's their own son, but it's Krishna. So on all these, because Krishna also transformed into calves, all the cows they were not leaving their calves only, they were just giving all their milk to their calves, they were just licking their calves, and it is a beautiful Leela. It's a very vivid and a complete description. But what we see here is Krishna fulfilled the desire of all the Brajvasis in such an extraordinary way. It's na bhuto na bhavishyat. Nobody can ever imagine such a reciprocation can even take place. So that's Krishna. He can do anything to reciprocate the love of his devotees. So yeah. So and after this, what happens? The next element when Krishna reciprocates is there is annihilation of the inauspicious elements. So the very purpose of Krishna's descent is paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkritam. He annihilates the miscreants. So when Rukmini was taken, so there was a fierce battle between the Vrishnis and all these enemies coming together from Shishupal's side, and all these Vrishni army has thoroughly defeated them. So Jarasandha along with Shishupal and all of them, they go back. Shishupal was very disappointed and depressed, and with all he goes back. So at that time, what happens? In fact, Jarasandha consoles Shishupal by giving him philosophy. Don't worry, Shishupal. There is this duality of life. He gives all the entire Gita philosophy minus the surrender to Krishna and pacifies Shishupal. And on the other hand, Rukmi was somebody who was not happy. He was so outraged that how can he take my sister like this, and he swears in front of all the citizens of Kundina, I would kill Krishna or I will not return to Kundina again. So and he swears, and he goes and he attacks along with his army, and he makes it. He goes and he rides past Krishna's chariot. He goes in front of him alone on his chariot, and he calls Krishna for a fight. But Krishna, he did not want to fight with Rukmi because of the simple fact that now he's his brother-in-law, the brother of Rukmini. So he tries to evade. He tries to communicate that in many ways. In fact, Rukmi hurls such very offending words at Krishna, and he takes his bow, and Krishna and he shoots arrows on Krishna, and Krishna also shoots back arrows, and he breaks the bow of Rukmini, and he takes another bow, and again he tries to attack Krishna. Krishna again breaks that bow too. Then he takes a javelin, he takes a pike, and he takes different weapons to attack Krishna, and Krishna just breaks those weapons. He does not directly attack Rukmini. He could have done that in a moment, but he just tells Rukmini indirectly, just stop it and go back home. But Rukmini doesn't listen. Now Rukmini takes a sword and a shield, and he gets off his chariot, which was broken because of Krishna's arrows, and he charges towards Krishna. So Krishna at this time, he is like, he even with his arrows, he breaks the shield and the sword of Rukmini, and he now feels, bahut ho gaya. Now he deserves at least some treatment, so that he stops doing this. So Krishna gets off his chariot, he takes his sword, and he ties the hands of Rukmini behind with a cloth. He takes his sword and he chops off the hair of Rukmini at different places, and he looks like a big fool. He shaves off half of his mustache, and he shaves off his hair. So at this point, actually, when Krishna takes his sword to kill Rukmini, Rukmini falls at the feet of Krishna, and she prays to him, please forgive my brother. Then that's when Krishna cuts off his hair and mustache, and he gives him this form. So whenever there is an intervention of pure devotee, then the Supreme Lord easily forgives even the worst of offenses. We see this in the Leela of Indra and many other Leelas. So and then Rukmini becomes very aggrieved, and she was upset. So this basically, so whenever Krishna reciprocates, there is annihilation of inauspicious elements. So Krishna in Kali Yuga, he descends as when the sun of Krishna has set, the moon of Srimad Bhagavatam has arisen. So Srimad Bhagavatam also is something which does this purpose of annihilation of the inauspicious elements within our own hearts. So whenever we are hearing Krishna Katha, it completely cleanses the contamination of the world. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavatam which says, Brahman Krishna Katha Punya Madhvi Loka Malapaha Ko Nutrupyeta Shrunvanaha Shrutajnyo Nitya Nutana. Brahman Krishna Katha Punya, Madhvi, Krishna Katha is so sweet, and Loka Malapaha, it is something that can destroy the contamination, mala, the contamination of this whole world. And Konutrupyeta Shrinvana, who will be ever satiated by listening to Krishna Katha? Shrutajnyo Nitya Nutana, it is always ever fresh. That is the beauty of Krishna. It's so sweet, it's ever fresh, and it has a potency to completely eradicate the contamination of this world. So this Krishna Katha has the same potency as Krishna to annihilate the inauspicious elements within this world and within our own heart. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevya. By constantly reading Srimad Bhagavatam, all that is inauspicious in the heart is cleansed away. That's the potency of Bhagavatam, which has the same potency as Krishna himself. So what happens next is Krishna's reciprocation. There is awakening of transcendental knowledge. So now that Krishna has done this to Rukmini, Balramji enters the scene. So recently we have celebrated Balram Purnima. So Balramji is a representative of the spiritual master. So he comes and he unties Rukmini's, he unfastens how Krishna has tied him. He unfastens those ropes, and he mildly chastises Krishna. Krishna, what have you done? Will you do something like this to our own family members and well-wishers? So why Balram says like this is to pacify Rukmini. He sees that Rukmini is really disturbed and she's aggrieved because of this happening to her brother. So Balram understands the sensitivity of the situation and acts in a very expert way. So he unties Rukmini and he lets him go, and he mildly chastises Krishna, though there was absolutely no fault of Krishna, just to ease the feelings of Rukmini. And she was, he was very sensitive to her. And then he tells Rukmini, Rukmini, please do not worry, do not think that we are being unfair to your brother, such things, and he gives her beautiful philosophy, he gives her transcendental knowledge. He then, first he actually empathizes with her, and the mild chastisement of Krishna and telling that we are sorry, and he calls Rukmini as Suhrit, as a dear relative. He used, though he is not at all. Rukmini has all along been very he was always cunning. He was planning all wrong things, but still he tells him Suhrit, just to pacify Rukmini. And when Rukmini hears that she gets a support from the Balramji, she feels soothed at her heart. So at this time, Balramji gives transcendental knowledge. He in fact tells her about the nature of ego, how some men driven by ego and conceit, they actually offend, being so intoxicated by the pride of kingdom, wealth and money, and such people deserve punishment. And a person, one should know that they are the soul, and the soul is not inimical to anybody, or nor does it have friends. He tells very beautiful deep philosophy, and giving this transcendental knowledge, he actually eases the heart of Rukmini. And Rukmini, after receiving this knowledge, she comes back to her pristine smile and her natural original mood. So this is Balram's way of expertly handling this whole situation. There was a nice combination of sensitivity along with expertise, and this is such a great preaching. See, whenever we preach, we either first how Balramji approached is, had a very humanistic approach. He was very sensitive to the feelings of Rukmini. He soothed her heart, and then he gave transcendental knowledge. So this is the expert preaching. So oftentimes we either have only humanistic approach, that I empathize with you and share their pain, that's it, and don't speak anything about philosophy, or we only speak about philosophy without understanding the pain of the person. So either ways is the extremes. So this giving only philosophy without any understanding of the human pain, humanistic pain the person is going, it's oftentimes called, it's surgery without anesthesia. So we should not be the too extreme, but it should be a nice blend of both, like how we see in the example of Balramji. So whenever Krishna comes, he gives transcendental knowledge, either personally, like we saw in the case of him giving as Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti, or he sends his representative, or he speaks through his representative. The result is he reciprocates by awakening the inherent transcendental knowledge within a person. So the final aspect, the seventh aspect of Krishna's reciprocation is all auspiciousness. So when Krishna reciprocates, there is all auspiciousness. So after Balramji has brought, Balramji has spoken the transcendental knowledge to Rukmini, she was back to her natural mood, and Krishna drove Rukmini back to Dwarka. And at Dwarka, all the denizens of Dwarka were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Lord, and they were all grandly dressed with all beautiful ornaments and nice dresses, and the whole city was decorated so opulently, and with all the elephants dancing, and in such a royal way they receive Rukmini and Dwarkadish, and they're all eagerly waiting the wedding. And finally the wedding of Krishna and Rukmini happened in a very, very, very beautiful and fabulous way, and it was such a celebration in the entire city, celebration in everybody's hearts. So Krishna's reciprocation comes in the form of all auspiciousness. So another name in the 64 qualities of Lord Krishna, one of the quality is Krishna is Sarva Subhankara. Sarva Shubhankara means Krishna is all auspicious. He brings all auspiciousness. So Lord Krishna is also called Shyamasundara. Shyamasundara means whose complexion is like the rain cloud. So there's a beautiful analogy in the light of Bhagavat that when the living entity in separation from the Supreme Lord, his heart is like become dry because of the scorching heat of material existence. In Hyderabad the summers are so extreme. In the mid of May, how much we all long to see that rain cloud, and those downpour of the first rain. So after that May, that midsummer of May, when we see the first rain cloud, which is, you know, black, bluish black, fully water laden, what a joy we feel. You know, that's how a soul that is so desperately burning in the scorching heat of material existence, with the presence and with the advent of Krishna in our heart, into our lives, we feel that, you know, that relief, that ecstasy, and that auspiciousness coming into life. And when that rain cloud comes and rains, and it just makes the whole land fertile and wet. Similarly, when Krishna comes into our life, he makes our heart fertile with all the sprouts of, you know, beautiful feelings of love and happiness and delight and ecstasy. And there is that ever fresh, you know, celebration and auspiciousness with the advent of Krishna's in our life and in our hearts. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. And so after the marriage, what has happened? How Krishna led his life in Dwaraka with with Rukmini and the queens. So that is the section 3. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.